Hi, guys. Tonight we dive into a fascinating journey through time, how ancient cultures viewed hygiene, and the surprising connections between cleanliness and morality, especially in the world of prostitution. Imagine this. If you were living in ancient Rome, Greece, or even medieval Europe, your daily rituals of washing, bathing, and scenting yourself might say more about your social status than you ever thought possible. How did societies that lived thousands of years ago shape our ideas of beauty and purity? And how did their perceptions of cleanliness influence their views on sex work? Trust me, it's a story full of mystery, stigma, and culture defining practices that still echo today. So, get comfortable and prepare to discover how ancient civilizations intertwined cleanliness with not just health, but social and spiritual meaning. Let's explore what you've never learned about hygiene and society. Prostitution is one of the oldest professions in the world, with evidence of its practice dating back to ancient civilizations. In many of these societies, prostitution was not only a recognized part of the social structure, but often served spiritual, economic, or social purposes. Ancient prostitutes, often revered, marginalized, or both, had a unique role in their respective cultures, and their hygiene practices were as diverse as the societies they lived in. The way these individuals maintained cleanliness before engaging in their work was influenced by a variety of factors, including cultural norms, religious rituals, and access to resources. In exploring how ancient prostitutes cleaned themselves, we must consider both the practical aspects of hygiene and the broader cultural context in which these practices existed. Personal hygiene has always been an essential part of human life, but it carried unique significance in the ancient world, especially for those involved in sexual services. The concept of cleanliness in this context was not just about avoiding disease or staying physically attractive, but also had spiritual and societal implications. In many ancient cultures, there was a belief that physical cleanliness was directly connected to purity, morality, and even divine favor. This made the maintenance of hygiene even more crucial for individuals engaged in prostitution, as their work often intersected with religious, social, and legal expectations. In ancient societies, prostitution was sometimes considered a sacred or divine duty, particularly when tied to religious rituals. In Mesopotamia, for example, some prostitutes were associated with the temples of Ishtar, the goddess of love, and engaged in sacred sexual rituals that were believed to bring fertility and prosperity. These women were often required to maintain high standards of cleanliness and adornment to fulfill their roles, which were considered as much spiritual as they were sexual. In other societies, such as ancient Greece and Rome, prostitutes occupied a more complex position. They were often seen as lower class citizens, yet their services were deeply intertwined with the social, political, and economic fabric of these societies. For many ancient cultures, cleanliness was not just a matter of personal preference or hygiene. It was a way to maintain one's social standing and avoid being marked as unclean. Prostitutes, especially in more public facing roles, were subject to societal scrutiny and often had to adhere to cleanliness standards that would set them apart from the lower rungs of society. This often meant regular bathing, the use of perfumes and oils, and other cleansing rituals that served both to enhance their physical appeal and to signify their worth or status. The importance of hygiene and personal care was particularly prominent in ancient Greece, where bathing was a social ritual for everyone, including prostitutes. Public bathhouses were central to Greek life, and they provided a space for both hygiene and relaxation. These baths were more than just practical, they were venues for social interaction, and it was not uncommon for men to visit the bathhouses specifically to engage with prostitutes. In these spaces, personal cleanliness was not only a matter of hygiene, but also a form of self presentation. Prostitutes would often use aromatic oils, perfumes, and special bath products to enhance their attractiveness and create an aura of luxury. Similarly, in ancient Rome, prostitutes were expected to maintain a certain level of personal cleanliness, particularly the more affluent or public facing brothels. Roman baths were a widespread feature of Roman society, and they played an essential role in maintaining personal hygiene. These baths were elaborate structures with multiple rooms for different types of cleaning rituals, such as sweating, washing, and massaging. Prostitutes working in Roman brothels would have participated in these practices, using sponges, oils, and pumice stones to scrub and cleanse themselves before engaging with clients. The act of bathing in these public spaces carried social significance and was a sign of both status and care. Hygiene practices varied from culture to culture, but the common thread across many ancient civilizations was the strong link between cleanliness and social respectability. Prostitutes, regardless of their status, had to navigate the delicate balance between their public roles and personal care. The cleanliness rituals they adhered to were often designed to preserve their health and attractiveness, but they also had a deeper social and cultural meaning. In many cases, cleanliness was a marker of professionalism and respectability, and neglecting hygiene could have serious repercussions for a prostitute's reputation and livelihood. While the materials and methods used by ancient prostitutes to maintain cleanliness may seem rudimentary by modern standards, it is important to consider the context in which these practices were developed. Ancient societies did not have the advanced sanitation systems or medical knowledge we have today. Instead, people relied on natural resources such as water, herbs, and oils to cleanse and protect their bodies. Prostitutes, like others in these societies, used whatever resources were available to them to maintain hygiene, often relying on local practices and cultural traditions. The use of essential oils, perfumes, and herbs was common in many ancient civilizations, and these substances were believed to purify the body, mask odors, and even ward off disease. In some cases, hygiene practices were influenced by religious beliefs and rituals. In ancient Egypt, for example, bathing was seen as a form of spiritual purification. The Nile River, which was central to Egyptian life, was also a symbol of cleanliness and fertility. Prostitutes, especially those associated with religious rituals, would have used the river's waters to cleanse themselves before engaging in sacred sexual acts. They may have also employed aromatic oils and perfumes to further enhance their spiritual and physical appeal. The Egyptians, with their advanced knowledge of cosmetics and personal care, were known for their elaborate beauty rituals, which likely extended to their prostitutes as well. Similarly, in ancient India, the practice of maintaining personal hygiene was closely linked to spiritual beliefs. Ayurveda, the traditional system of medicine, emphasized the importance of cleanliness not only for physical health, but for mental and spiritual well being. Prostitutes in ancient India, particularly those who worked in temples or sacred spaces, would have adhered to these practices. Bathing with herbs and oils was a common ritual, and the use of natural remedies was an essential part of maintaining both physical and spiritual purity. The cleansing process was often seen as a way to purify the body and soul, aligning with the Hindu belief in the sanctity of the human body. Across many ancient societies, the role of prostitutes was influenced by both practical and symbolic factors. Cleanliness was not just a way of maintaining physical health or hygiene, it was also about upholding the social and spiritual expectations of the time. Prostitutes had to maintain their physical appearance and cleanliness to preserve their place in society, as well as their economic viability. This meant following the cultural norms of their time, whether that involved regular bathing, the use of perfumes, or participating in ritualistic cleansing ceremonies. In some cultures, prostitutes had access to higher status hygiene resources, such as luxurious oils and perfumes, while in others, their practices were more basic and tied to the availability of local materials. Throughout history, the way that prostitutes cleaned themselves before sex was deeply tied to the cultural, religious, and social frameworks of their societies. Hygiene practices were not just about keeping the body clean, but also about maintaining one's position within a larger system of beliefs and values. For many ancient prostitutes, cleanliness was a matter of survival, reputation, and professional success. It was an essential part of their identity, and the rituals they followed were as much a reflection of their societies as they were of the individuals who practiced them. Understanding these ancient practices gives us a glimpse into how personal care and hygiene intersected with broader societal norms and the complex roles that prostitutes played in the ancient world. As we reflect on the hygiene practices of ancient prostitutes, we can see how their methods and rituals were shaped by the societies in which they lived. Whether through the use of water from sacred rivers, the application of perfumes and oils, or the participation in spiritual purification rituals, these practices were an integral part of the prostitute's work and identity. In many ways, these rituals were a reflection of the broader cultural values surrounding cleanliness, purity, and social status, highlighting the ways in which personal care transcended mere physical health to become a symbol of societal belonging and spiritual worth. The history of ancient prostitution is in many ways a history of how societies viewed cleanliness, sexuality, and social roles, providing us with valuable insights into the complex intersections of hygiene, culture, and human life throughout history. In ancient Egypt, personal hygiene and beauty were essential elements of daily life, intricately tied to the culture, religion, and social structures that defined this ancient civilization. The Egyptians placed a strong emphasis on cleanliness, believing that both physical and spiritual purity were necessary for maintaining harmony with the gods and ensuring prosperity. For many, maintaining an immaculate appearance was a way to demonstrate respect for the divine and an individual's place in society. This was especially true for those who worked in the temples, such as priests, priestesses, and in certain instances, sacred prostitutes. Their beauty rituals and hygiene practices were far more than just personal grooming. They were part of their duties to the gods, embodying the sacred relationship between the earthly and divine realms. Aromatic oils, perfumes, and ointments played a crucial role in the daily hygiene and beauty routines of ancient Egyptians. The use of fragrances was deeply woven into the cultural fabric of the civilization, with the Egyptians creating elaborate mixtures of essential oils, herbs, and resins. These oils and perfumes were seen as symbols of cleanliness, luxury, and protection. The ancient Egyptians made a clear distinction between the ordinary and the sacred in their use of scents, with particular oils reserved for temple rituals and others used for personal care. Many oils, such as those derived from myrrh, frankincense, and cinnamon, were valued not only for their pleasant aromas, but also for their purported healing properties. These substances were used as ointments for the skin, as fragrances to mask odors, and even in ceremonial contexts to purify the body and spirit. The use of these oils was not just about beautification, it had spiritual significance. Ancient Egyptians believed that gods and goddesses, such as Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty, were pleased by the sweet aromas of incense and perfumes. The use of perfumes was associated with divine favor, and it was not uncommon for Egyptians to anoint themselves with fragrant oils before engaging in religious ceremonies or important social events. This practice extended to the courtesans and sacred prostitutes who worked in the temples. These women would have been anointed with aromatic oils to purify themselves before entering the sacred spaces, enhancing both their physical appeal and their spiritual purity. Fragrance, in this sense, was seen as a conduit to the divine, elevating the individual from the mundane to the divine. In the homes of the wealthy and in temple complexes, bathing was an elaborate ritual, often performed in specially constructed baths or large stone basins. These private bathhouses were seen as luxurious spaces where individuals could immerse themselves in water, sometimes mixed with herbs or oils, to relax and refresh. The rich would use perfumes and scented oils to cleanse their bodies after bathing, as well as to prepare themselves for social events. For those of a lower social status, bathing was often done in the open, using water from the Nile or other natural sources like wells or lakes. However, even for the common people, the act of washing was still a vital part of daily life and played a key role in personal cleanliness. In addition to oils and perfumes, the use of water from the Nile and other natural sources was central to Egyptian cleansing rituals. The Nile River, which was the lifeblood of the Egyptian civilization, also played an essential role in personal hygiene and beauty. Water from the river was used for washing and purifying the body, and it was believed to have special properties, as it was directly linked to the gods and the cycles of life and death. Egyptians would often bathe in the Nile, not only to cleanse themselves of physical impurities, but also to purify their souls. Water from the Nile was considered to have sacred qualities, and bathing in it symbolized a connection to the divine forces that governed the world. Bathing was not merely a physical act, but had a symbolic purpose. It was considered a form of spiritual purification, particularly when done before religious ceremonies or before entering the temple. The act of washing was seen as a way of casting off impurities, both physical and moral, and preparing oneself for communion with the gods. This was especially important for the priestesses and prostitutes who served in temples. These women, whose roles were intertwined with religious practices, were often expected to maintain a high level of personal cleanliness as part of their duties to the gods. Bathing before performing any religious or sacred acts was not only a matter of personal hygiene, but also an act of reverence and devotion. In addition to the Nile, Egyptians had access to other natural sources of water for bathing. The use of herbal infusions and scented water for washing was also widespread. Herbs such as mint, lavender, and rosemary were commonly used for their soothing, cleansing properties. These herbs, often infused into oils or water, were known for their ability to purify and refresh the body, and their fragrant qualities helped to mask body odor, which was a critical part of the hygiene practices in ancient Egypt. These herbal concoctions were used not only in private baths, but also in public bathhouses, which were prevalent in major cities such as Thebes and Memphis. These communal bathhouses allowed individuals to bathe and socialize, making cleanliness a shared social experience as much as it was a personal ritual. The use of water from the Nile was deeply embedded in religious practices. The Egyptians believed that water symbolized life, and the Nile was the source of all life in the civilization. This made water an essential element of purification rituals. In some cases, temples had pools or baths specifically for ritualistic cleansing. These water sources were not just for bathing, but also for the performance of sacred acts, such as the washing of idols or the purification of sacred objects. Women who worked in the temple, particularly those who were involved in the sacred rites of fertility and love, would have undergone these rituals to maintain their purity and to be in a state of spiritual readiness for their sacred duties. The Egyptians also employed a variety of tools to enhance their bathing rituals. Sponges and cloths were commonly used for scrubbing the body, and they often carried symbolic meanings. The use of a sponge was seen as a way of scrubbing away impurities and preparing for the next phase of life. Oils and ointments were applied to the skin after bathing to moisturize and protect it from the harsh desert climate. These oils often contained ingredients such as aloe, which was prized for its soothing properties, as well as honey, which had both antibacterial and moisturizing benefits. The skin was considered the outer manifestation of the soul, and as such, keeping it soft, clean, and fragrant was seen as an important aspect of maintaining a harmonious existence. Personal grooming also played a significant role in the Egyptians' beauty rituals. Women, in particular, would use various tools to care for their hair, eyebrows, and skin. The use of kohl to darken the eyes was common among both men and women, and it was believed to have protective qualities against the harsh sun and the evil eye. Hair care was also an essential part of the beauty routine. Wigs were worn by both the rich and the poor, and they were often made from human hair or plant fibers. These wigs were meticulously cleaned and groomed, with some women using scented oils to protect the hair and enhance its shine. The importance of cleanliness extended beyond bathing, affecting the daily life and personal habits of the ancient Egyptians. The concept of cleanliness was deeply tied to their belief in Mate, the goddess of truth, balance, and order. Maintaining personal hygiene was seen as a way of maintaining balance in one's life and ensuring that one was living in accordance with the cosmic order. For those involved in temple services, including sacred prostitutes, cleanliness was not just a matter of physical health, but a spiritual necessity. The sacred role these women played in the temples made them the embodiment of purity, both in body and in soul. The Egyptian concept of beauty was intrinsically tied to their beliefs about the afterlife. Just as maintaining beauty was important in life, it was also crucial in death. The embalming process, which preserved the body for the afterlife, was in many ways a reflection of the importance the Egyptians placed on personal hygiene. The mummification process involved the cleansing and purification of the body, and perfumes and oils were used to anoint the dead, helping them transition from life to the afterlife in a state of purity. In ancient Egypt, The rituals surrounding hygiene and beauty were not only a reflection of personal care, but also deeply connected to the culture's religious, social, and spiritual values. From the use of aromatic oils and perfumes to the sacred bathing rituals in the Nile, every aspect of cleanliness was infused with symbolism and meaning. Whether it was a simple cleansing before a social event or a sacred purification before entering the temple, the Egyptians understood that beauty and hygiene were more than surface level concerns. They were an essential part of maintaining a balanced life and honoring the divine. The beauty rituals of ancient Egyptian women, particularly those who worked in the temples, serve as a testament to the importance of hygiene and personal care in this ancient society, where the physical, spiritual, and social realms were all interconnected. In ancient Greece, the concept of cleanliness and personal grooming was an essential part of daily life, and it was particularly emphasized in the context of social interactions and public spaces. One of the most important aspects of Greek society was the public bathhouse, which played a central role not only in personal hygiene, but also in socializing, business dealings, and even, in some cases, sexual commerce. Bathhouses were communal spaces where men and women, sometimes separately, gathered to bathe, relax, and converse. These spaces were more than just places of physical cleanliness. They were places where social status was defined, where relationships were formed, and where rituals of purification took place. Public baths, therefore, served multiple functions, blending practicality with the ritualistic, social, and cultural elements of Greek life. Bathing was a highly significant practice in ancient Greece, and the bathhouses were considered essential to both the physical and spiritual well being of individuals. These bathhouses, or lautrones, were large, complex structures that were typically located in cities and towns. They featured various rooms with different types of water temperature, hot, warm, and cold, to accommodate different preferences and needs. The Greeks saw bathing not only as a means of personal hygiene, but also as a way to foster social connections. The public bathhouse was a place where citizens from all walks of life could meet and converse, making it an important social and cultural hub. In these bathhouses, both men and women, though typically in separate areas, could indulge in a full body cleansing ritual. Bathers would start by first undressing and then using a scraping tool called a strigil to remove dirt and sweat from their skin. After this, they would immerse themselves in warm or hot water to cleanse their bodies further. The water in these bathhouses was often supplied by public aqueducts or wells and was considered to have therapeutic properties. The bathhouses also served as spaces for relaxation and leisure, offering baths as well as places to chat, socialize, and even conduct business. Prostitutes in ancient Greece, especially those who worked in brothels or provided sexual services to wealthy men, also used these bathhouses to maintain their cleanliness and personal care. The role of public bathhouses in maintaining the appearance and hygiene of prostitutes cannot be overstated. As in many ancient cultures, Greek prostitutes were often expected to adhere to certain standards of beauty and cleanliness to attract clients and maintain their social status. The use of bathhouses was crucial in achieving this. Prostitutes who worked in the more established brothels of Athens or other major cities would have regularly visited these bathhouses, where they would undergo a cleansing ritual to prepare themselves for the work they did. For these women, the act of bathing went beyond the simple act of washing away dirt. It was an essential part of maintaining their physical allure and professional reputation. Prostitutes, often seen as both public figures and private service providers, needed to maintain an image of beauty and cleanliness. Bathing in the public bathhouses was a way to keep their bodies in top condition, to ensure that they smelled pleasant, and to help them maintain their reputation for being attractive and desirable. Furthermore, these bathhouses served as spaces where they could engage in conversation with other women and men, and sometimes conduct business negotiations related to their services. The practice of bathing in the public bathhouse was also connected to the wider Greek ideal of bodily care and aesthetics. The Greeks were renowned for their appreciation of the human body, which was reflected in their art, philosophy, and daily life. For a prostitute, maintaining an attractive and healthy appearance was crucial. It was not just about looking good for the sake of vanity, it was a matter of survival. A prostitute's income often depended on her physical appearance and cleanliness, and public bathhouses provided an essential space for maintaining both. These women would have used the bathhouses as places to cleanse themselves, refresh their bodies, and rejuvenate their spirits, preparing them for the demanding and often exhausting work of sex work. Bathhouses in ancient Greece also provided opportunities for the use of fragrances and oils. After bathing, bathers would often apply various oils and perfumes to their skin to moisturize, scent, and further cleanse the body. Fragrances were an essential part of Greek culture and were considered a reflection of a person's status, wealth, and social standing. The use of oils and perfumes was an integral part of the post bath routine, helping bathers to not only preserve their skin, but also to project an air of refinement and cleanliness. In ancient Greece, perfumes were made from a variety of natural ingredients, including flowers, herbs, spices, and resins. The most prized perfumes were often made from exotic ingredients that were imported from other regions of the Mediterranean. For example, oils infused with myrrh, frankincense, and rose were common and highly valued for their fragrance and therapeutic properties. These oils were often massaged into the skin after bathing, helping to lock in moisture and to impart a pleasant scent. This was not merely a cosmetic ritual, but also a way of ensuring that one's body smelled fresh and appealing to others, especially in the context of sexual commerce. For prostitutes, the application of oils and perfumes was more than just about personal grooming. It was an integral part of their professional identity. The fragrances they wore could influence their attractiveness to clients, and a well-chosen scent could make all the difference in a woman's success. Oils and perfumes had the added benefit of masking any unpleasant odors, which was particularly important for women who worked in brothels or engaged with numerous clients. The pleasant, sweet scents of these oils also served as a form of advertising. Just as the use of fragrance in modern times can make someone stand out, the perfumes worn by Greek prostitutes were a part of their personal brand. They helped establish an identity and could be a distinguishing feature that made a woman stand out in the crowded and competitive world of ancient Greek sex work. In addition to their personal use of oils and perfumes, bathhouses were also places where prostitutes could engage in more elaborate beauty rituals. In these spaces, women could take the time to apply facial masks, exfoliate their skin, and use other beauty products to enhance their attractiveness. These rituals were not just about physical beauty, they were tied to the social and spiritual roles that these women played. Beauty and cleanliness were seen as an extension of a woman's purity and desirability, which were important factors in maintaining a successful career in prostitution. As such, prostitutes in ancient Greece were likely to have a well developed routine of beauty care that included bathing, the use of fragrant oils, and other grooming rituals. The bathhouses were not just places of personal hygiene, they were also part of the complex network of relationships that defined Greek society. For prostitutes, bathhouses offered a way to maintain their professional appearance and reputation, as well as a place to socialize and connect with potential clients. The use of fragrances and oils, as well as the time spent in the baths, were part of the careful process of preparing oneself for work. These rituals, combining cleanliness and beauty with social and spiritual significance, show just how deeply entwined hygiene and personal care were with the daily life and work of prostitutes in ancient Greece. In addition to the baths themselves, the Greeks developed other beauty practices that were often intertwined with the bathhouse experience. For example, the use of cosmetics such as kohl to line the eyes was common among both men and women, and this practice may have extended to prostitutes as well. These cosmetics, used to accentuate facial features, were part of a broader Greek cultural appreciation for bodily aesthetics. This focus on the human form, on the elegance of the body and the face, was a key aspect of Greek beauty standards, which were reflected in the way prostitutes prepared for their work. It's likely that after bathing, women would spend additional time applying makeup and beautifying themselves, ensuring that they were as appealing as possible to their clients. As much as public bathhouses were central to maintaining cleanliness and beauty, they were also deeply connected to social and cultural life. These bathhouses were places where business transactions could take place, relationships could be cultivated, and personal reputation could be enhanced. For prostitutes, the use of the bathhouse was not just about maintaining hygiene, it was about crafting an image and a persona that would appeal to clients. The time spent in the bathhouse, the oils and perfumes used afterward, and the beauty rituals that were performed were all part of a larger effort to ensure a successful career in a highly competitive environment. In conclusion, the role of public bathhouses in ancient Greece was far more than just a space for cleanliness. For prostitutes, the bathhouse was a critical site of personal grooming, beauty care, and social interaction. These bathhouses were where they could maintain their physical appeal, refresh themselves after a long day of work, and prepare for the next encounter. The use of oils, perfumes, and fragrances after bathing was an essential part of this process, as these elements help to enhance a woman's allure and professional success. Bathhouses served as both physical spaces of purification and symbolic spaces of beauty, where hygiene and social status were intertwined. The careful attention to personal care, embodied in the Greek love of the human form and its desire for cleanliness, shows just how integral hygiene and beauty were to the role of prostitutes in ancient Greek society. In ancient Rome, hygiene was of immense importance, not only for physical health, but also as a reflection of one's social status and respectability. Roman society, with its highly organized infrastructure, placed great emphasis on cleanliness, and this was evident in the elaborate systems of public baths that played a central role in the daily lives of Romans. Bathing, along with other personal care rituals, was deeply embedded in the social fabric of Roman life. Public baths, known as thermae, were not just places to wash the body, but also venues for relaxation, socialization, and even political dealings. Hygiene was considered a cornerstone of Roman civilization, and for many, the bathhouse was an essential part of daily routine, providing a space for both personal cleanliness and community connection. The Roman baths were large, complex structures designed to accommodate large numbers of people. These baths were equipped with sophisticated plumbing systems that provided a continuous flow of water from aqueducts, allowing bathers to enjoy the cleansing effects of both hot and cold water. The baths were often monumental in scale, with vast domed ceilings, multiple rooms for different types of bathing, and various pools set at different temperatures. Romans viewed bathing as an essential part of both physical hygiene and social life, and it was a practice that permeated all levels of society. Whether they were the elite or the common people, Romans made regular visits to the bathhouse, integrating this ritual into their daily routines. The process of bathing in ancient Rome was elaborate, with several steps involved. Bathers would first begin in the apoditerium, the changing room, where they would undress and leave their clothes in lockers or with attendants. From there, they would move to the frigidarium, the cold pool, to begin the process of acclimating their bodies to different temperatures. After the cold pool, they would proceed to the tepidarium, a warm room where the heat would help to relax the muscles and prepare the body for further cleansing. The final stage was the coldarium, a hot bath designed to open the pores and cleanse the skin. The hot water, often accompanied by aromatic oils, allowed for deep cleansing. After spending time in the coldarium, bathers would scrub their skin using tools such as a strigil, a curved metal instrument that helped to remove dirt, sweat, and oils from the body. The use of the strigil was a critical part of Roman bathing culture. It was employed after soaking in the hot water when the body's pores were open and ready to expel impurities. Bathers would scrape their skin with the strigil, removing accumulated oils and sweat. This practice helped to ensure that the body was completely clean and free from any excess grime. In addition to the strigil, Romans also used pumice stones and sponges to assist with cleaning. Pumice stones were particularly useful for scrubbing rough areas of the skin, such as the feet, elbows, and knees. These stones, which were soft yet abrasive, could effectively remove dead skin and exfoliate the body. Sponges, often soaked in oil or water, were used to wash the body during the soaking process, ensuring a thorough cleanse before moving on to the final stages of the bathing ritual. The use of sponges, pumice stones, and strigils highlights the level of care Romans took with their hygiene. These tools were designed to not only cleanse the body, but also to maintain the smoothness and appearance of the skin, which was highly valued in Roman society. Maintaining a clean and well-groomed appearance was seen as a sign of respectability, and the use of these tools was a reflection of that cultural value. Wealthy Romans would have had access to the finest materials for their baths, including scented oils, fine linen towels, and perfumed ointments, further enhancing their grooming experience. For the common people, however, the basic tools of pumice stones and sponges suffice to meet the standard of cleanliness expected in Roman society. In addition to the public baths, personal hygiene in ancient Rome also extended to other areas of daily life, including grooming and attire. Romans were known for their meticulous attention to detail when it came to their appearance. Hair care was an important aspect of personal grooming, and Roman citizens often used specialized combs, oils, and lotions to keep their hair neat and healthy. Women, in particular, placed a great deal of importance on their hairstyles, and there were many intricate hairstyles that required frequent attention. For both men and women, being well groomed and clean was an essential part of presenting oneself as an upstanding citizen. Hygiene in the Roman brothels, or lupanars, was similarly important, although it often took on a different form due to the nature of the services provided. In Roman society, prostitution was legal and regulated, and brothels were a common feature of urban life. While the clients of these brothels were primarily seeking sexual services, cleanliness and hygiene were still of significant importance, both for the sake of health and the reputation of the establishment. The lupanar was a space where the intersection of personal hygiene and professional service was of paramount concern. Prostitutes who worked in these establishments were expected to maintain a high level of cleanliness, as their success in attracting clients depended heavily on their physical appearance and overall grooming. Roman brothels, though often located in less prestigious parts of the city, were typically designed with separate rooms for each prostitute. These rooms were furnished with basic amenities and often had access to bath facilities where the women could bathe and prepare themselves for their work. As with other parts of Roman society, personal hygiene in the brothel was a reflection of the standards upheld in the wider community. Prostitutes would likely have used pumice stones, sponges, and oils, similar to those used in the public baths, to keep their bodies clean and appealing to their clients. It was essential for these women to maintain a fresh and pleasant scent, and they would have used perfumes and oils to mask any unpleasant odors, which was especially important given the nature of their work. The significance of cleanliness in the Roman brothels also extended beyond personal care to the broader cleanliness of the space itself. Brothels, while not always the most glamorous of establishments, were still expected to adhere to certain standards of hygiene. Rooms were regularly cleaned, and bedding would have been changed between clients to ensure the space remained sanitary. Public bathhouses likely served as a vital resource for these women, offering not only a space to clean themselves, but also a venue where they could mingle with potential clients. The bathhouses were part of the public infrastructure that allowed the women working in brothels to maintain a standard of cleanliness that was expected by Roman society. While public bathhouses provided an important space for hygiene, the lupanar also had its own systems of cleanliness. Just as Roman citizens took pride in their personal grooming, prostitutes in the brothels would have been conscious of their appearance and cleanliness, using the same tools and practices to maintain a pleasant physical state. In the competitive world of prostitution, where many women were vying for the attention of clients, maintaining cleanliness was crucial for success. Prostitutes who failed to meet these standards of hygiene risked losing clients and damaging their reputation, which could severely impact their livelihood. Beyond the physical aspects of cleanliness, there was also a cultural and social element to hygiene in Roman society. The act of bathing, cleaning, and grooming oneself was not just about health, it was an important part of Roman identity. Cleanliness was a reflection of a person's status, morality, and attention to detail. For prostitutes in the lupanar, maintaining cleanliness was a way of asserting their worth as professionals and demonstrating their ability to provide a high quality service. Just as the Roman elite used baths to socialize, relax, and maintain their social status, so too did those working in the brothels rely on cleanliness to maintain their reputation and ensure their continued success. In the Roman world, personal hygiene was intricately linked to social structure, and the expectations placed on individuals varied based on their status and profession. The wealthy elite had access to the most luxurious bathing experiences, with scented oils, fine linens, and private baths. Meanwhile, those of lower status, such as prostitutes, also adhered to strict standards of cleanliness, though their experiences were less lavish. Regardless of their position in society, however, all Romans understood the importance of cleanliness as an essential part of life. The tools they used, the baths they attended, and the rituals they followed were not only practical, but also deeply embedded in their cultural identity. The focus on sanitation and personal care in ancient Rome demonstrates the high regard in which cleanliness was held, from the elaborate public bathhouses that provided space for social interaction and personal cleansing, to the meticulous care that Romans took with tools like pumice stones, sponges, and strigils. Hygiene was integral to daily life. Prostitutes in the Roman brothels, like the rest of Roman society, were expected to adhere to these standards of cleanliness, ensuring that their work met the cultural norms of personal care and professionalism. Hygiene in this context was not merely a matter of personal comfort, but was deeply tied to social norms, reputation, and the value placed on maintaining physical and moral integrity. Whether in the public baths or the private rooms of the lupanar, cleanliness in ancient Rome was an essential element of both personal identity and professional success. In ancient Mesopotamia, ritual purification and cleansing held significant spiritual and cultural importance. The people of this civilization believed that physical cleanliness was closely intertwined with spiritual purity, and both were essential for maintaining harmony with the divine forces that governed the natural world and human life. The practice of cleansing was not limited to everyday hygiene, but was embedded in religious ceremonies, daily routines, and even intimate acts such as sex. Before engaging in sexual intercourse, individuals, especially those involved in religious rituals or prostitution, were often required to undergo ritual purification. These practices were deeply rooted in the belief that the body's purity was a reflection of its spiritual state, and the act of cleansing was a necessary step before engaging in any sacred or physical acts, including sex. Ritual purification in ancient Mesopotamia was an elaborate process that involved the use of water, oils, and herbs, each with its own symbolic significance. The use of these substances was not merely practical, but also deeply tied to religious beliefs and the concept of divine favor. Water, for instance, was seen as a purifier and was often associated with the gods, particularly in the context of fertility. The Mesopotamians believed that water was essential for life and that it had the power to cleanse both the body and the soul. In many ritual practices, water was used to wash away impurities and to prepare individuals for sacred acts, whether it was the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates or water from sacred wells. It was seen as a divine resource that could cleanse the body, mind, and spirit. In addition to water, oils and herbs played a vital role in the cleansing rituals of the Mesopotamians. Aromatic oils, often made from natural ingredients like myrrh, frankincense, and cedar, were used not only for bathing, but also for anointing the body. These oils were believed to have purifying qualities, and their fragrant aromas were considered a way to communicate with the divine. The act of anointing oneself with oils was a symbolic gesture of preparing for sacred actions and connecting with the spiritual realm. The use of herbs in cleansing rituals was also common, with certain plants believed to possess purifying or healing powers. Herbs such as mint, sage, and hyssop were often used in baths, massages, and incense to purify both the body and the space around the individual. These natural elements were thought to have the power to drive away evil spirits and bring blessings from the gods. The ritual of purification before sex, particularly in the context of religious ceremonies, was an important aspect of life in ancient Mesopotamia. Sacred prostitution, a practice that was tied to the worship of deities such as Inanna, the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, was one of the most notable aspects of Mesopotamian culture that involved ritual purification before sex. Women who were involved in this practice would visit temples and engage in sexual rituals with priests or worshippers as a form of devotion to the gods. Before performing these acts, they would undergo a series of cleansing rituals to prepare themselves spiritually and physically. These rituals were seen as a way to honor the goddess and ensure that the act of sex was sacred, imbued with divine energy, and beneficial for fertility. The act of purification before engaging in sex was not limited to temple prostitutes, but extended to anyone preparing for sexual activity, particularly those involved in fertility rituals. Fertility was a central theme in Mesopotamian religion, and the physical act of sex was seen as a way to promote fertility, both in the human world and in nature. The gods were believed to control the fertility of crops, animals, and people, and ensuring their favor was crucial for the prosperity of society. Cleansing before sex was, therefore, a way of aligning oneself with the divine forces that controlled life's most essential processes. By purifying the body before engaging in sexual acts, individuals believed they could secure divine favor, ensuring fertility, abundance, and the continued cycle of life. Water, oils, and herbs were essential in preparing for these sacred acts. In addition to the physical cleansing, these substances were believed to invoke the divine, offering protection from negative influences and inviting blessings for fertility and prosperity. Water was often used in the form of a ritual bath, which would be accompanied by prayers and invocations to the gods. The bath was a symbolic act of washing away impurities and making oneself pure and worthy of participating in the sacred rituals of fertility and sex. Oils were then applied to the skin, both as a form of personal care and as a way of enhancing the spiritual significance of the cleansing process. The anointing with oil was a gesture that marked the transition from the mundane to the divine, preparing the individual for a sacred act. Herbs, too, were used for their symbolic and practical qualities. Certain herbs were thought to possess protective and purifying properties, which could ward off evil spirits or negative energies that might interfere with the ritual. These herbs were often burned as incense or used in the preparation of oils in baths. In the context of fertility rituals, they were believed to enhance the divine power of the act of sex and ensure that it would result in the desired outcome of fertility and prosperity. The use of herbs in these rituals was part of a broader belief system that tied natural elements to spiritual and divine forces. The Mesopotamians viewed the natural world as a reflection of the divine, and the use of plants, water, and oils in their rituals was a way of invoking the power of nature to influence the spiritual and physical realms. The symbolic role of cleansing in religious ceremonies tied to fertility cannot be overstated. In Mesopotamian culture, fertility was not only about reproduction, but also about ensuring the prosperity of the land and the well-being of the people. Fertility was associated with the gods, particularly the great goddess Inanna, whose influence was believed to extend over both human reproduction and the fertility of the earth. The act of sexual intercourse, particularly in the context of sacred prostitution and fertility rites, was seen as a way of connecting with the divine and ensuring that fertility would be bestowed upon the land, the people, and the crops. The ritual purification that preceded these acts was therefore an essential part of the process. By cleansing the body and spirit, individuals prepared themselves to invoke the divine energy necessary for fertility and abundance. Ritual purification was also tied to the belief that physical cleanliness was necessary for spiritual purity. In Mesopotamian religious thought, the body was seen as a vessel for the soul, and it was important to keep this vessel clean to avoid contamination from evil spirits or negative energies. Physical purity was considered essential for participating in sacred rites and for maintaining a connection to the divine. The act of purification was not just about preparing for sex, it was about aligning oneself with the spiritual forces of the universe and ensuring that the ritual would be carried out properly. Whether through the use of water, oils, or herbs, the act of cleansing was a form of spiritual preparation, a way to purify the self before engaging in acts that were believed to influence the fertility of the land and the future of the community. The ritualistic cleansing before sex was not limited to fertility rituals and sacred prostitution. It also extended to everyday life in Mesopotamian society. Cleansing and purification were considered important acts in maintaining personal and societal order. This ritual purification was part of a broader system of religious observances that governed many aspects of Mesopotamian life. From the king to the common person, individuals were expected to adhere to purification practices as a way of ensuring that they remained in favor with the gods. Personal hygiene and cleanliness, therefore, had both practical and spiritual significance in Mesopotamian society. The symbolism of cleansing before sex also extended to the broader role of women in Mesopotamian society. Women, especially those who were involved in fertility rituals or sacred prostitution, were often seen as the mediators between the human and divine realms. Their role in sexual rituals was not just about physical reproduction, but also about maintaining the cosmic balance of fertility and abundance. The purification process was therefore an essential part of their role in ensuring that these rituals were conducted in a manner that would guarantee the favor of the gods. Women who participated in these rituals were seen as sacred beings whose bodies had the power to influence the divine forces that controlled the fertility of the earth and the future of society. In conclusion, the practice of ritualistic cleansing before sex in ancient Mesopotamia was a deeply significant aspect of religious and cultural life. Water, oils, and herbs were essential components of these purification rituals, each carrying its own symbolic meaning and connection to the divine. The act of cleansing was not only about personal hygiene, but was an important spiritual practice that allowed individuals to align themselves with the gods and ensure fertility, prosperity, and divine favor. Whether in the context of sacred prostitution, fertility rituals, or everyday life, purification played a central role in Mesopotamian culture, underscoring the belief that physical cleanliness was inseparable from spiritual purity. The ritualistic cleansing of the body before sex was a symbolic gesture of preparing for a sacred act, one that connected the physical realm with the divine and ensured that the forces of fertility and abundance would flow freely throughout society. In ancient China, personal hygiene and health were closely intertwined with the practice of herbal medicine. The use of natural remedies, particularly herbs, played a central role in daily life, influencing everything from diet and skincare to cleanliness and overall well being. Traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, which has its roots in the ancient practices of the Chinese people, emphasize the balance of the body's internal energies, known as qi, the harmony between the body and nature, and the importance of maintaining bodily cleanliness as a way to preserve health. This approach to personal care and hygiene was not only about external cleanliness, but also about ensuring that the body's internal systems were in balance, preventing illness and promoting longevity. The practice of herbal baths and the use of natural remedies were key components of this holistic approach to hygiene and health. In ancient China, bathing was not merely a way to clean the body, but also a method for restoring balance to the body's energy and improving its functioning. Herbal baths, infused with a variety of natural ingredients, were a common practice for people from all walks of life. These baths were used to cleanse the skin, relax the muscles, and promote overall well being. The herbs used in these baths were carefully chosen for their medicinal properties, as different herbs offered specific benefits to the body. For example, herbs like chrysanthemum, lavender, and peppermint were often used in baths for their cooling and calming effects, while others like ginger, cinnamon, and ginseng were used to promote circulation, warm the body, and improve vitality. In addition to herbal baths, other natural remedies were widely used for hygiene and health in ancient China. Many of these remedies were based on principles of TCM, which viewed the body as a microcosm of the natural world, governed by the same forces. The idea was that the body's health and cleanliness were directly linked to the balance of the elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, and the proper flow of qi. Herbs, roots, and minerals were carefully selected to support the body's natural rhythms and energies. For instance, for skin health, remedies made from ginseng, goji berries, and licorice root were used to nourish the skin, strengthen the body's immune system, and prevent the signs of aging. When it came to maintaining cleanliness, particularly for women in ancient China, the use of herbs was essential. Women, especially those of higher social standing, were expected to maintain their physical appearance and cleanliness. This included frequent bathing, the use of herbal infusions for the skin, and the application of herbal remedies to preserve beauty. Beauty and cleanliness were highly regarded in ancient Chinese society, and personal hygiene was seen as an outward expression of one's moral character and social status. The ritual of bathing, in combination with the use of herbal medicines, was seen as an essential practice to maintain both physical health and spiritual harmony. For prostitutes in ancient China, maintaining cleanliness was not only a matter of personal hygiene, but also part of their professional identity. Prostitutes, like other women, were expected to adhere to strict standards of cleanliness, as their appearance and overall well being were directly tied to their success in attracting clients. In the bustling cities of ancient China, where prostitution was a legalized and well regulated profession, women working in brothels often used herbal remedies and frequent baths to ensure that they remained desirable and healthy. As public health was also a priority, prostitutes were likely to take great care in maintaining their personal cleanliness, as poor hygiene could damage their reputation and cause a loss of business. To maintain their hygiene, prostitutes in ancient China would have bathed regularly in water infused with herbs. These baths would have been designed not just for cleaning the body, but also for purifying it, both physically and spiritually. As in many other ancient cultures, Chinese prostitutes were often seen as symbolic figures representing the balance between the sacred and the profane, and their cleanliness was important to maintain both personal dignity and the expectations of society. Herbal baths would have been a key element of this process, as they were believed to purify the body, remove toxins, and refresh the mind. In addition to their use of herbal baths, prostitutes would have also used other herbal remedies, such as topical applications of medicinal pastes or oils, to maintain their skin and keep their bodies free from disease. In ancient China, the significance of personal hygiene extended beyond the realm of prostitution. The traditional Chinese medicine system, with its long history of observation and practical use, placed great importance on the prevention of illness through lifestyle practices, including cleanliness. TCM sought to maintain health through the balance of internal energies, and the belief was that the proper balance of qi could be achieved through the use of natural remedies, including herbs, acupuncture, and diet. Herbs were considered essential in maintaining hygiene, not just for external appearances, but also to cleanse the body internally, ensuring that the various organs and systems functioned optimally. Herbal medicine, as part of TCM, also influenced the way people viewed body odor. In ancient China, body odor was often seen as an imbalance in the body's internal energies. It was believed that an excess of certain elements, such as heat or an imbalance in the flow of qi, could manifest as unpleasant odors. To address this, herbal remedies and specific baths were used to purify the body and restore harmony. Ingredients like mint, ginger, and chrysanthemum were known for their cooling properties, helping to alleviate the heat in the body, while herbs like lotus root, bamboo, and honeysuckle were used to clear excess moisture, providing an overall refreshing effect. These herbs were often used in combination in both internal remedies and external applications, such as body scrubs and infused baths, to address the root causes of body odor and promote freshness. Prostitutes in ancient China, much like their counterparts in other parts of the world, understood the critical importance of maintaining a clean and pleasant appearance. The use of herbal baths and natural remedies as part of their personal hygiene routine helped them to stay healthy and appealing to their clients. In addition to the physical cleanliness that these herbal remedies provided, they also serve to boost confidence and promote a sense of well-being. Given that their livelihoods often depended on their appearance and health, the application of herbal medicine became a necessary tool in preserving their professional success. Regular bathing with herbs would have kept their skin smooth and free from the blemishes that might have harmed their appeal. By keeping their bodies fresh and free from impurities, they ensured that their services were in high demand. The use of herbs for personal hygiene in ancient China was not limited to prostitutes. However, it extended to all segments of society, and herbal medicine was a critical part of the daily routines of the aristocracy and the common people alike. For women of higher social standing, such as wives of scholars, officials, and merchants, maintaining cleanliness and beauty was essential for both personal and social reasons. Beauty was linked to a woman's moral and spiritual purity, and the practice of hygiene through herbal baths and remedies was believed to maintain that purity. For men, too, cleanliness and grooming were highly regarded, and the use of herbal remedies for skin care, hair growth, and general health was common. The influence of traditional Chinese medicine on personal hygiene cannot be overstated. The holistic approach of TCM, which focused on the balance of body and mind, played a crucial role in shaping how individuals viewed their health and cleanliness. Herbs and natural remedies were seen as an essential part of maintaining health, preventing disease, and ensuring that individuals remained free from impurities, both internally and externally. The Chinese understanding of hygiene was deeply connected to the idea that the body must be in balance with nature, and the use of herbal medicine was seen as the way to achieve that balance. The use of herbal baths and natural remedies in ancient China represented a convergence of health, beauty, and spirituality. These practices were not only about cleaning the body, but also about restoring harmony and balance, both physically and spiritually. Whether for prostitutes seeking to maintain their appeal, women wishing to uphold their social status, or individuals focused on maintaining their health, the application of herbal medicine was a vital part of life in ancient China. It highlighted the belief that the body was a reflection of the soul and that maintaining hygiene through natural remedies was essential for achieving a harmonious existence. The enduring legacy of these practices continues today in the use of herbal medicine and traditional Chinese health practices, which remains central to holistic health systems around the world. In conclusion, the use of herbal baths and natural remedies for hygiene in ancient China was a deeply ingrained cultural practice, rooted in the principles of traditional Chinese medicine. These practices emphasize the importance of balance, health, and purity. For prostitutes, these practices were crucial in maintaining their attractiveness and health, which directly impacted their professional success. For the wider population, the use of herbs for hygiene and wellness was a vital part of daily life, connecting the physical body with spiritual health. Through these practices, ancient Chinese society demonstrated a profound understanding of the relationship between personal care, health, and overall well being, and the influence of herbal medicine continues to be felt in modern times. In ancient India, the practice of personal hygiene was deeply intertwined with spiritual beliefs and medical systems, particularly Ayurveda. Ayurveda, the ancient system of medicine that originated in India over 5,000 years ago, is based on the idea that the body, mind, and spirit are interconnected and that maintaining balance in all three is essential for overall health and well being. Ayurveda emphasizes the use of natural remedies, including herbs, oils, and other treatments to achieve this balance. Personal hygiene in Ayurveda is not just about keeping the body clean, it is also a way to maintain spiritual harmony and physical health, reflecting the holistic view of wellness that the ancient Indians held. Ayurveda views the body as a microcosm of the universe, governed by three fundamental energies, known as the doshas: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These doshas correspond to different elements and qualities within the body and are believed to influence physical health, mental state, and even emotional well being. The balance of these energies is crucial for maintaining health, and any imbalance is thought to lead to illness or dis-ease. Ayurveda therefore advocates for cleansing rituals that not only focus on the external aspects of cleanliness, but also aim to purify the body internally and restore balance to the doshas. The rituals and practices of Ayurveda promote a holistic approach to hygiene, where the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of the individual are all nurtured through self care and cleanliness. The role of Ayurveda in personal hygiene goes far beyond simply washing or bathing. It involves a deep understanding of how the body functions and how it interacts with nature. In Ayurveda, personal hygiene is considered a part of daily self care, known as dinacharya. This daily routine includes various practices to cleanse and rejuvenate the body and mind, such as oil massage, avyenga, herbal baths, tongue scraping, and nasal cleansing. These rituals are intended to promote the flow of vital energy, prana, throughout the body, help maintain the health of the digestive system, and purify the mind. They are also thought to improve circulation, boost immunity, and reduce stress, contributing to a sense of overall well being. Avayanga, or self massage with oil, is one of the most important practices in Ayurvedic hygiene. This ritual involves massaging the entire body with warm herbal oils that are tailored to an individual's dosha type. The oils are infused with medicinal herbs and are chosen according to a person's specific needs. For example, someone with a predominance of pitta, the dosha associated with fire and heat, might use cooling oils like coconut or sandalwood, while someone with a predominance of kapha, the dosha associated with earth and water, might use invigorating oils such as mustard or sesame. The oil massage not only nourishes the skin, but also calms the nervous system, detoxifies the body, and balances the doshas. Avayanga is considered an essential part of the daily routine because it promotes the smooth flow of energy through the body, enhances circulation, and helps eliminate toxins that accumulate due to improper digestion or stress. The process of massaging the oil into the skin helps open up the pores, allowing the medicinal properties of the herbs to penetrate deeply. The act of touching the body in a loving and mindful manner also fosters self care and emotional healing, contributing to both physical and spiritual cleanliness. In addition to Abhyanga, Ayurvedic practices often include the use of herbal infusions and medicinal baths for cleansing the body. Bathing in water infused with herbs is a common practice that has both therapeutic and purifying effects. In ancient India, the bath was not just about cleanliness in the conventional sense, it was a sacred ritual that helped balance the doshas and promote a sense of well being. Different herbs were chosen based on their healing properties, which varied according to an individual's needs. For example, turmeric, known for its anti inflammatory and antioxidant properties, was often used in herbal infusions to cleanse and rejuvenate the skin. Sandalwood, with its cooling and calming effects, was frequently added to baths to soothe both the skin and the mind. Neem, an herb with strong antibacterial properties, was used to cleanse the skin and fight infections. These herbal baths were believed to purify the body and eliminate toxins, or ama, that accumulate due to poor digestion, unhealthy food, or environmental pollutants. In Ayurveda, ama is seen as the root cause of disease, and cleansing the body of this toxic buildup is an important part of maintaining good health. Herbal baths not only help cleanse the body, but also purify the mind, as they are seen as a spiritual practice that connects the individual with nature and the divine. The aromatic herbs used in the baths were also believed to promote a sense of peace and calm, contributing to mental clarity and emotional balance. The practice of bathing with essential oils and herbal infusions in Ayurveda is deeply connected to the concept of sattva, or purity. According to Ayurvedic philosophy, a person's physical state, mental clarity, and spiritual purity are all intertwined. Regular use of herbal oils and baths is said to help maintain the purity of the body and mind by removing impurities and fostering balance. This connection between body and spirit is reflected in the emphasis placed on cleanliness as both a physical and spiritual practice. By cleansing the body through the use of essential oils and herbal remedies, individuals are thought to purify their energy, creating a clear channel for prana to flow freely through the body. Ayurvedic practices also stress the importance of internal cleansing. The use of herbs for digestion and detoxification plays a major role in Ayurvedic hygiene. Digestive health is considered a cornerstone of overall well being in Ayurveda, and the health of the digestive system is thought to be directly linked to the body's ability to cleanse itself. Certain herbs, such as triphala, a blend of three fruits, samla, haritaki, and bibitaki, are commonly used in Ayurvedic medicine to improve digestion, remove toxins, and support the detoxification process. Triphala is often taken in the form of a powder mixed with water or ghee, and it helps promote regular bowel movements, purify the blood, and cleanse the digestive tract. Another common internal cleansing practice in Ayurveda is the use of herbal teas, which are made from a variety of medicinal plants. These teas, such as ginger tea or chamomile tea, are used not only to hydrate, but also to cleanse the body from within. They help improve digestion, balance the doshas, and detoxify the body. For example, ginger is known for its warming and stimulating properties, making it particularly effective for promoting healthy digestion and boosting metabolism. Chamomile, on the other hand, has calming and soothing properties, which help to relax the nervous system and alleviate stress. The internal use of these herbs complements the external cleansing practices, helping to maintain balance and promote optimal health. In ancient India, personal hygiene was seen as a way of honoring the body as a sacred vessel. The body was believed to be a reflection of the universe, and maintaining cleanliness was seen as essential for spiritual growth and well being. The use of Ayurveda for personal hygiene was therefore a holistic practice that involved both physical cleansing and the cultivation of mental and spiritual clarity. Cleansing the body was not only about removing dirt or impurities, but about removing the internal toxins that could disrupt the flow of energy and prevent spiritual growth. By maintaining physical cleanliness, individuals were thought to create a harmonious relationship between the body and the spirit, which in turn contributed to their overall health and well being. For women in ancient India, hygiene and beauty were also closely tied to Ayurveda. Women were often expected to maintain a certain level of cleanliness and beauty, which was believed to reflect their moral and spiritual purity. The use of Ayurvedic oils and herbs for skin care, hair care, and overall well being was not only a form of self care, but also a way to demonstrate social and spiritual responsibility. Ayurvedic oils like coconut oil, sesame oil, and almond oil were used to nourish the skin and hair, prevent signs of aging, and maintain physical and emotional health. These oils were often infused with herbs like rose, jasmine, or sandalwood, which were believed to have healing properties and to enhance beauty. Ayurveda also placed great emphasis on the role of the mind in personal hygiene. Mental clarity and emotional balance were considered essential for maintaining physical health. Practices like meditation, yoga, and breath work were incorporated into daily routines to support the mind and body in their cleansing and healing processes. These practices were believed to help release stress, promote mental clarity, and balance the emotions, contributing to overall well being. The significance of Ayurveda in personal hygiene was not limited to external cleanliness, but also extended to internal health, mental clarity, and spiritual purity. Ayurvedic practices, such as herbal baths, essential oils, and cleansing teas, were an integral part of daily life in ancient India. These practices not only promoted physical cleanliness, but also supported the balance of the body's energies, helping individuals to maintain good health, emotional balance, and spiritual clarity. By embracing the holistic approach of Ayurveda, ancient Indians were able to maintain harmony within themselves and with the natural world, contributing to a sense of overall well being that transcended mere physical hygiene. In conclusion, Ayurveda's role in personal hygiene in ancient India was not just about cleanliness in the physical sense, but was a reflection of the interconnectedness of the body, mind, and spirit. Cleansing rituals, such as herbal baths, oil massages, and internal detoxification, were vital to maintaining balance and health. These practices were designed to purify both the body and the mind, allowing individuals to align themselves with nature and the divine forces that governed the universe. Ayurveda, with its emphasis on natural remedies and holistic health, continues to influence personal care practices today, offering a timeless approach to wellness that integrates physical, mental, and spiritual well being. In ancient Persia, personal hygiene and the pursuit of cleanliness were not just practical concerns, but deeply embedded in cultural, social, and religious practices. The Persian people placed great importance on both physical and spiritual purity, which was reflected in their elaborate bathing rituals and the luxurious environment of their public bathhouses. The Persian hammam, or steam bath, played a central role in this pursuit, serving not only as a place for cleansing the body, but also as a social space for relaxation, healing, and even intellectual and cultural exchange. The use of perfumes, oils, and fragrances in Persian culture was another significant aspect of personal care, highlighting the importance of scent as a reflection of one's social status and sophistication. These practices extended to courtesans, whose hygiene and grooming were essential to their roles in society, and the standards they maintained in personal care were closely tied to their perception by society. The Persian hammam was much more than just a place to wash. It was a luxurious space where social interactions, relaxation, and personal care came together in a ritualistic form. Hammams were meticulously designed to provide a complete sensory experience, with steam, heated water, and sometimes even aromatics filling the air. They were typically built with stunning architectural features, such as domed ceilings, intricate tile work, and multiple rooms designed to cater to different needs. The central feature of a hammam was the hot room, where bathers would sit or lie on marble slabs, allowing their bodies to sweat and release toxins in the warm, humid air. This sweating process was considered a form of purification, not just for the body, but also for the spirit. After sweating in the hot room, bathers would move to cooler spaces to rinse off and relax, completing a ritual that left them feeling both physically clean and mentally refreshed. The Persian hammam was an important part of daily life, serving as a social hub for people of all ages and social classes. The tradition of communal bathing in Persian society fostered social interaction as individuals gathered in hammams to engage in conversation, discuss business, or simply enjoy a relaxing respite from their daily routines. While the hammams were often associated with cleanliness, they were also places where intellectual, political, and cultural ideas were exchanged. This social aspect of the hammam made it a vital part of Persian society, where personal hygiene was not just an individual responsibility, but a communal activity that strengthened bonds within the community. The Persian bathhouses were also symbolic spaces, representing a connection between the earthly and the divine. The process of cleansing in the hammam was considered a way to purify oneself spiritually, not just physically. This idea was deeply rooted in Zoroastrian beliefs, the dominant religion in ancient Persia, which emphasized the importance of purity and cleanliness. Zoroastrianism taught that the physical world was a reflection of the divine, and the act of cleansing the body was seen as a way of aligning oneself with divine order. Bathing in the hammam, therefore, was more than just a physical act. It was an opportunity to cleanse the soul, to rid oneself of impurities, and come closer to the divine. In addition to the steam baths, the use of perfumes, oils, and fragrances was integral to Persian culture, especially when it came to personal care and hygiene. The Persian people had a long history of using fragrances to enhance their lives, and the art of perfumery was highly developed by the time of the ancient Persian Empire. Perfumes and oils were used not only for personal hygiene, but also as a way to express one's wealth, sophistication, and social status. The use of fragrant oils was common in both men's and women's personal care routines. These oils were often infused with flowers, herbs, and spices, which were believed to have healing and soothing properties. The Persian elite, in particular, were known for their lavish use of perfumes, often incorporating them into their daily rituals of grooming and bathing. Essential oils such as rose, jasmine, and sandalwood were prized for their aromatic qualities and were used in both personal grooming and in the context of religious ceremonies. Rose oil, in particular, was a symbol of beauty and luxury in Persian culture, and its use was often associated with royal families and aristocrats. The oil was also believed to have spiritual significance, as it was thought to bring one closer to the divine. Sandalwood, with its calming and grounding aroma, was another popular fragrance, used both for personal hygiene and in the incense that filled Persian temples and palaces. The rich, complex scents of these oils served not only as a mark of sophistication, but also as a reflection of the Persian appreciation for beauty and the finer things in life. The use of perfumes in ancient Persia was not just about masking unpleasant odors, as we often think of fragrance today. It was seen as an essential part of the process of self-care, enhancing one's physical and spiritual purity. Persians believed that the use of fragrances could purify the air and elevate the spirit, just as the hammam was a place of physical and spiritual cleansing. The application of perfumes and oils was a way of ensuring that the body and mind remained in harmony with the divine. This holistic approach to personal hygiene and care was central to Persian culture and reflected a deep understanding of the connection between the physical and the spiritual. For courtesans in ancient Persia, maintaining personal hygiene and grooming was of paramount importance. Courtesans, often skilled in music, dance, poetry, and conversation, were expected to meet high standards of cleanliness and beauty. Their role in society required them to present themselves as alluring and sophisticated, and this image was carefully cultivated through rigorous personal care routines. Maintaining cleanliness was not just about attractiveness, it was essential for their reputation and their ability to succeed in their profession. Like other women in Persian society, courtesans would regularly visit the hammam to bathe and cleanse themselves. These women understood the importance of maintaining a fresh and pleasant scent, as their success often depended on their ability to engage and captivate their clients. The use of perfumes, oils, and other fragrant substances was central to their grooming rituals. Courtesans would often apply rose water or sandalwood oil after bathing to ensure that they smelled pleasant and to add to their overall aura of luxury and allure. The luxurious scents they wore became part of their identity, helping them establish a distinctive and memorable presence in the social circles they frequented. The hygiene standards for courtesans in ancient Persia were strict, and their grooming practices were closely tied to their social status. The expectation that courtesans would maintain high standards of cleanliness reflected broader societal values regarding beauty, purity, and social class. Women who worked as courtesans were expected to embody the cultural ideals of elegance, refinement, and sensuality, and their personal hygiene played a critical role in shaping their public image. This emphasis on cleanliness was not only about physical appearance, but also about maintaining a sense of spiritual and moral purity. In Persian society, it was believed that the external appearance of a person could reflect their inner state, and the practice of keeping oneself clean was seen as a sign of moral integrity and discipline. Moreover, courtesans were often expected to adhere to a broader set of beauty standards that included not just hygiene, but also physical appearance. They would use perfumes and oils to soften and moisturize their skin, as well as to enhance their physical appearance. The application of cosmetics, such as kohl for the eyes, was also a part of their grooming routine, allowing them to further highlight their features and conform to the beauty ideals of the time. The use of makeup, along with perfumes and oils, helped courtesans maintain their allure and appeal, making them more successful in their roles. Despite the fact that courtesans were often associated with sexual services, their status was not always considered low. In ancient Persia, courtesans were often highly regarded for their intellect, charm, and beauty. They were sometimes seen as important figures in the royal courts and were even admired for their artistic skills and cultural knowledge. This distinction between the courtesan's public persona and their private lives highlights the complexity of their position in Persian society. While they were expected to maintain a certain level of cleanliness and beauty, their personal hygiene was seen as a symbol of their professional status rather than a reflection of any moral deficiency. The hygiene standards for courtesans also extended to the cleanliness of their living spaces. Like the hammams, courtesans' homes and the brothels they worked in were carefully maintained to ensure a high standard of cleanliness. This attention to detail contributed to the luxurious and refined atmosphere that courtesans were expected to uphold. In this way, the physical spaces they inhabited, as well as their personal appearance, were designed to create an environment of comfort, elegance, and allure. In conclusion, the role of luxurious baths and personal care in ancient Persia cannot be underestimated. The Persian hammam, with its elaborate design and ritualistic cleansing practices, was a central part of Persian society, serving both as a place for physical cleanliness and as a spiritual and social hub. The use of perfumes, oils, and fragrances further elevated the experience of personal care, with these scents symbolizing luxury, purity, and sophistication. For courtesans, hygiene and grooming were not just matters of personal preference, but were essential to their professional identity and social standing. By adhering to strict standards of cleanliness, courtesans maintained their allure and ensured their success in their profession, while also reflecting the broader cultural values of beauty, refinement, and spiritual purity in ancient Persia. In medieval and early modern Europe, the concept of personal hygiene was deeply intertwined with social class, religious beliefs, and the prevailing cultural norms of the time. Hygiene was not just about cleanliness for the sake of health, it was also tied to morality, status, and spirituality. Prostitution, as an established part of medieval and early modern society, was often scrutinized not just for its social implications, but for the personal hygiene of those involved. The public perception of prostitutes was shaped by the belief that sexual activity outside the confines of marriage was inherently sinful, and the way these women cared for their bodies was often seen as a reflection of their moral character. This created a complex relationship between hygiene, prostitution, and societal views on purity and cleanliness, especially as Christianity's influence began to shape attitudes during the Middle Ages and the early modern period. In medieval Europe, personal hygiene was generally rudimentary by modern standards. Public bathhouses were common in cities, but they were often seen as places of indulgence, associated with sin and moral corruption. The medieval church, which held considerable influence over daily life, had a complicated stance on public bathing. While the church acknowledged the need for basic hygiene, it often viewed public baths as places where not only the body, but also the spirit could become contaminated. Bathhouses were linked to the sexual activities of both prostitutes and common folk, where people congregated for more than just bathing. The sexual connotations of bathhouses, along with their popularity for illicit activities, contributed to a stigmatized view of personal hygiene in relation to prostitution. Prostitutes, often confined to the lowest rungs of society, were expected to maintain their physical appearance to remain attractive to clients. However, they were also seen as morally and physically impure by the broader society, which added a layer of complexity to their personal hygiene. As women involved in sexual commerce, prostitutes were often perceived as physically unclean or morally corrupt. The stereotype that linked prostitution with physical and moral filth became a significant social stigma. For these women, maintaining cleanliness was not just a matter of personal well-being, but was also directly tied to their reputation and livelihood. The physical act of cleansing, therefore, carried with it an additional burden, the need to appear respectable and desirable, while also bearing the weight of social stigma. The role of public bathhouses in medieval and early modern Europe was crucial for maintaining hygiene, though they were often viewed with suspicion. Bathhouses were often communal spaces where individuals, including prostitutes, would gather to bathe and cleanse themselves. However, these spaces were not just about hygiene, they were also sites of social interaction and often of sexual exchange, which further reinforced the stigma surrounding prostitution. Bathhouses in cities like Paris, London, and Florence were frequented by both men and women, and it was common for prostitution to be an open practice within these spaces. Prostitutes, particularly those in public baths, were expected to maintain a level of cleanliness that reflected their status, but they also had to navigate the moral and religious judgments of the society they lived in. For many prostitutes, the public bathhouses were the only spaces where they could afford to clean themselves and maintain personal hygiene. These women, often marginalized in society, used these communal facilities to wash and prepare for their work. Bathhouses, especially in larger cities, became hubs where prostitution was normalized and even institutionalized in some cases. However, the stigma surrounding these spaces was never far removed. Prostitutes were often depicted as morally tainted, and their association with these bathhouses, where sexual activities frequently took place, added to their negative reputation. For many, this represented the complicated duality of prostitution in the medieval and early modern world, a necessary yet morally questionable part of society. In addition to the public bathhouses, private spaces for prostitutes also played an important role in their personal hygiene. Many prostitutes operated out of private rooms or brothels, which offered them a more controlled environment for cleaning and preparing for clients. These private spaces were where personal care rituals could be maintained in a more intimate, less stigmatized setting. For these women, the ability to bathe privately and use oils and perfumes could help them retain some sense of dignity and control in a profession where both were often stripped away. Many brothels were equipped with basic bathing facilities, and the ability to cleanse oneself in private offered a refuge from the social judgment faced in public spaces. However, despite the more controlled environment of these private spaces, the stigma associated with prostitution still lingered. The moral and religious views of the time saw prostitution as a necessary evil, but one that was inherently sinful and socially disruptive. The use of perfumes, oils, and other grooming methods in these private spaces helped prostitutes maintain a professional appearance, but their cleanliness was often seen as masking the moral impurity of their work. This created a paradox for prostitutes. They were expected to maintain a clean and attractive appearance, yet their work itself rendered them permanently tainted in the eyes of society. Thus, personal hygiene became a tool not just for health and appeal, but for navigating the complex moral landscape that surrounded prostitution. The influence of Christianity on medieval and early modern European attitudes toward cleanliness and personal hygiene cannot be overstated. Christianity, which dominated the religious and cultural life of Europe during these periods, placed a strong emphasis on purity, both physical and spiritual. The Church taught that sexual relations outside of marriage were sinful and that chastity was a virtue. These ideas deeply influenced the social view of prostitution and the way prostitutes were treated in terms of cleanliness. Prostitutes were often seen as symbols of impurity, and their bodies were associated with sin. This connection between sexuality and impurity influenced how prostitutes were treated in both public spaces, such as the bathhouses, and private spaces, such as brothels. In early Christianity, there was a strong association between the body and sin. The Church taught that the body was a vessel that could be corrupted through immoral actions, and prostitution was often considered one of the most blatant forms of bodily corruption. This view of the body as something to be controlled and purified influenced medieval and early modern attitudes toward hygiene. Personal cleanliness was seen as a way of achieving spiritual purity and the act of cleansing the body was often seen as symbolic of the desire to rid oneself of sin and impurity. For prostitutes, however, this connection between hygiene and morality was a double edged sword. They were often seen as needing to be cleaned or purified, but society still viewed them as inherently sinful and beyond redemption. The influence of Christianity also extended to the regulation of prostitution, with the church playing a role in both condemning and regulating the practice. Some medieval church leaders advocated for the establishment of houses of ill repute to control prostitution, arguing that it was better to keep prostitutes in specific areas where they could be monitored and their hygiene could be maintained, rather than allowing them to roam freely. This paternalistic approach to prostitution often had little to do with improving the prostitutes' quality of life or their physical well being, but was instead motivated by a desire to contain moral corruption. Christian doctrine often viewed prostitutes as being fallen women who needed to be reformed or redeemed, and their hygiene was seen as a means of achieving this, albeit in a highly stigmatized and controlled way. In contrast, the idea of chastity and virginity was also upheld as a virtue for women in medieval Europe, creating a sharp dichotomy between the pure woman and the fallen prostitute. While public baths were seen as places for everyone to clean their bodies, they were also viewed as places where moral boundaries were blurred. Prostitutes, especially those who worked in public bathhouses or brothels, were subject to heightened scrutiny regarding their cleanliness. They were expected to maintain a certain level of grooming and hygiene to attract clients and maintain their profession, but their cleanliness was always tainted by the moral judgment society passed on their occupation. This complicated relationship between cleanliness, morality, and sexuality defined the lives of many women in medieval and early modern Europe. The paradoxical nature of hygiene for prostitutes in medieval Europe was further compounded by the social stigma they faced. While personal hygiene was viewed as an essential aspect of maintaining one's dignity and health, prostitutes were often denied the same respect. Their work, deemed morally corrupt, made their cleanliness seem suspect in the eyes of society. Even when they performed the same cleaning rituals and used the same oils and perfumes as higher status women, prostitutes were never able to escape the moral taint that accompanied their profession. The stigma was a constant reminder of the moral divide between the pure women and those engaged in sexual commerce. In conclusion, the relationship between personal hygiene, prostitution, and societal views on purity in medieval and early modern Europe was complex and multifaceted. While personal hygiene was considered an important part of daily life, it was also deeply linked to moral and religious beliefs. Prostitutes were expected to maintain a certain level of cleanliness, but their profession made it impossible for them to fully escape the moral stigma that came with their work. Public bathhouses and private spaces for personal care offered opportunities for hygiene and self-presentation, but they were also fraught with moral judgment. Christianity's influence on ideas of purity and cleanliness reinforced the dichotomy between moral purity and physical cleanliness, complicating the way prostitutes navigated their social world. Despite their efforts to maintain cleanliness and dignity, the stigma of their work often overshadowed their efforts, creating a persistent paradox in their daily lives. Throughout history, personal hygiene has been a fundamental aspect of human life, not only for health reasons, but also for cultural, social, and spiritual purposes. Different societies, cultures, and time periods have developed their own unique practices and beliefs regarding cleanliness, which often intersected with issues of morality, social status, and gender. In many ancient cultures, including those of Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Rome, China, India, Persia, and medieval Europe, hygiene practices were closely tied to religious beliefs, societal expectations, and even the profession of prostitution. In these societies, hygiene was not just about physical cleanliness, but was seen as a reflection of one's moral purity, social position, and adherence to religious or cultural norms. Over time, the cleanliness practices of these ancient civilizations shaped modern ideas of hygiene and continue to influence our understanding of personal care, beauty, and social roles today. In ancient Mesopotamia, hygiene and cleanliness were deeply integrated with spiritual beliefs and religious rituals. Ritualistic cleansing before engaging in sex, especially in sacred prostitution, was a significant practice as it was believed to purify both the body and spirit. Water, oils, and herbs were commonly used for these cleansing rituals, with the purpose of preparing individuals for sacred acts that were believed to influence fertility and prosperity. The use of herbal baths and aromatic oils was not just for cleansing the body, but also for connecting with the divine. This connection between cleanliness and spiritual purity was a hallmark of many ancient cultures, and it is evident in the practices of Mesopotamia, where the act of bathing became intertwined with religious devotion and fertility rites. Ancient Egypt, known for its advancements in personal care, also had a strong connection between hygiene and spiritual purity. Egyptians used aromatic oils, perfumes, and ointments to cleanse themselves, believing that physical cleanliness was necessary for spiritual well-being. The Nile River, which was central to their civilization, was seen as a purifying force, and bathing in its waters was believed to cleanse both the body and soul. For sacred prostitutes, cleanliness was not only a matter of personal hygiene, but also a way of maintaining a sacred connection to the gods. The elaborate beauty rituals in ancient Egypt, which included the use of cosmetics, perfumes, and oils, were a way of ensuring that one's physical appearance reflected divine favor and purity. In ancient Greece, public bathhouses played a significant role in both hygiene and social life. Bathing was an essential part of daily life, and the Greek ideal of physical beauty was closely tied to personal care. Prostitutes, who often frequented these bathhouses, used the space not just for cleansing, but also to maintain their physical appeal. Bathhouses in ancient Greece were places of social interaction, and the practice of cleanliness was both a practical necessity and a means of socializing. The use of fragrances and oils was also central to Greek personal hygiene, with perfumes and scented oils being used to enhance one's attractiveness and to project an air of luxury and refinement. The connection between cleanliness, beauty, and social status was evident in Greece, where hygiene practices were a key component of both daily life and the professional success of individuals, including prostitutes. The Roman Empire further expanded upon the concept of public baths and personal hygiene. Roman baths were large, sophisticated structures that not only provided a space for bathing, but also served as social centers. The use of pumice stones, sponges, and oils in the Roman baths was central to the process of cleansing and exfoliating the skin, while the application of fragrances and oils after bathing helped to maintain an appealing scent and appearance. For prostitutes working in Roman brothels, Cleanliness was vital for attracting clients, and regular visits to the bathhouse were part of their professional routine. The Roman emphasis on personal hygiene and grooming was closely tied to their understanding of beauty, health, and social respectability, and it influenced the way cleanliness was viewed in relation to prostitution and social status. In ancient China, personal hygiene was influenced by the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, and the use of natural remedies, particularly herbs, for maintaining cleanliness and health. Herbal baths and infusions were common, with different herbs chosen for their specific medicinal and purifying properties. Prostitutes in ancient China, like those in other ancient cultures, had to maintain their physical appearance to attract clients, and they used herbal remedies to stay healthy and clean. The emphasis on balancing the body's internal energies, qi through diet, herbal treatments, and personal care practices played a significant role in Chinese hygiene. The use of oils and herbal infusions was seen as not only a way to clean the body, but also a way to maintain harmony between the physical and spiritual aspects of life. In ancient India, the Ayurvedic tradition placed a strong emphasis on the connection between cleanliness and health. Personal hygiene in Ayurveda was seen as part of a broader system of self care that involved balancing the body's doshas, Veda, Pitta, and Kapha. Cleansing rituals such as oil massages, Avyanga, and herbal baths were essential for maintaining physical and spiritual well being. For women, particularly those in sacred roles, such as temple prostitutes, maintaining cleanliness was seen as a way to align oneself with divine forces. The use of herbal oils and infusions for bathing not only cleansed the body, but also promoted vitality and spiritual purity. Ayurveda's holistic approach to hygiene influenced many cultures and continues to shape modern wellness practices. Ancient Persia also had a rich tradition of personal care, particularly through the use of luxurious hammams or steam baths, which were central to both hygiene and social life. These public baths were not just places for cleansing the body, but were also spaces for socializing, relaxing, and conducting business. The use of perfumes, oils, and fragrances in Persian culture was widespread, with these substances being used for both personal grooming and religious ceremonies. Prostitutes in ancient Persia were expected to maintain high standards of cleanliness, as their physical appearance and hygiene were directly tied to their success. The use of perfumes and oils was integral to their daily routine, helping them maintain their allure and professional appeal. The connection between cleanliness, beauty, and societal values in Persia reflected the broader cultural understanding of purity, luxury, and social status. In medieval and early modern Europe, the relationship between hygiene and prostitution was influenced by religious and moral attitudes, particularly those stemming from Christianity. Personal hygiene was often seen as a reflection of moral character, and prostitution was considered a sinful activity. The public perception of prostitutes as morally impure often extended to their physical cleanliness, despite the fact that many worked hard to maintain their hygiene. Public bathhouses, which were frequented by prostitutes, were often associated with sin and moral corruption. However, for many prostitutes, maintaining cleanliness through regular bathing was a crucial part of their professional identity. Their hygiene practices were not just about health, but about combating the stigma that came with their profession. The influence of Christianity, which placed great importance on purity and chastity, shaped the way cleanliness was viewed in relation to prostitution, making it both a moral and physical endeavor. The impact of these ancient hygiene practices is still felt today. Modern ideas of personal hygiene, beauty, and health have evolved, but many of the foundational concepts that were developed in ancient cultures continue to shape contemporary practices. The use of perfumes, oils, and other grooming products has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, with many modern beauty practices rooted in the traditions of ancient Egypt, Greece, and Persia. The concept of cleanliness as a reflection of moral and social status also persists in contemporary society, where personal care and hygiene are often used to signal wealth, success, and social standing. In many ways, the ancient practices of cleansing, beauty, and self care were about more than just physical cleanliness. They were deeply tied to spiritual and social values. In ancient cultures, the act of maintaining cleanliness was often a means of aligning oneself with divine forces, preserving one's health, and asserting one's place in society. Prostitutes, in particular, had to navigate the complex intersection of personal care, morality, and societal expectations, and their hygiene practices were not only about health, but also about combating stigma and maintaining a sense of professionalism. The connection between cleanliness, beauty, and societal values in ancient times highlights the complex ways in which personal hygiene was viewed. It was not just a practical concern, but a moral and social issue, deeply influenced by religious beliefs and cultural norms, from the sacred rituals of ancient Mesopotamia to the luxurious hammams of Persia. Personal hygiene was an essential part of daily life and an important aspect of identity. As modern societies continue to evolve, the lasting impact of these ancient practices on hygiene, beauty, and social values remains evident in the way we approach personal care today. The understanding of cleanliness as both a physical and spiritual endeavor is a concept that transcends time and continues to shape our cultural attitudes toward health, beauty, and morality.